Okay, so I want to break down with you the three major reasons a dismissive avoidant attachment style seems to be able to just walk away so easily, whether it's after an argument, a disagreement, but especially after a relationship ends. And we're going to talk about what this says about you. If you're an anxious attachment style or fearful avoidant, deeply struggling with these things, because I want you to have some understanding as to what's going on in the inner world of a dismissive avoidant, but I also want to take you through exercises that will help you clarify the difference between what you can and cannot control, and then know where to put your focus and energy, because understanding these three things might completely transform the way you're actually looking at this relationship. So here's the first one. There is a continuum, essentially, of codependency and something called counter-dependency in relationships. And if you imagine that these are at these polar opposite ends, codependency is essentially at a very high level. This idea that I should just meet all of your needs and you should just meet all of mine. Yet we lose our sense of self in that process, right? I don't know how to meet my own needs. I don't pay attention to my own needs or self-soothe or build myself up. So for example, if I'm really codependent and I have a need to feel seen or connected or, to feel like I matter to somebody, chances are I am not really present with myself. I'm not really present with my own body, my own emotions, my own needs. I don't know how to meet my own needs or journal or meditate or do these things that are self-connection activities that help me see and connect to myself. And thus, I'm going to be really externally seeking these things when I'm codependent for somebody to fill my bucket, right? It's like I need somebody to do it for me because I'm struggling to self-source my needs. And that's a huge feature of codependency. There's a lot more to that discussion, but at a high level, think of codependency as that. And it's almost like when you're codependent, your relationship to your needs is I'm constantly going to people to source my needs because I don't know how to self-source. And it's usually because you weren't taught or that wasn't positively reinforced. So those are not conditions of your subconscious mind, okay? On the flip side of this, we have counter-dependency, and this is how it really pertains to dismissive avoidance. And this is point number 1 of 3. Dismissive avoidant attachment styles here, they tend to be very counter-dependent. And what that means, if you imagine along a continuum again, the opposite polarity of codependency is that they are like, I will only meet my needs. You should basically only meet your own needs. We shouldn't rely on each other. And so you can imagine when you take two people, one person who's codependent, one person who's counter-dependent, and you fuse them together, there's going to be a lot of confusion because one person's expectations are like, hello, you should be meeting my needs 24/7. And the other person is like, hey, why are you putting that on me? You should be meeting your own needs and give me space to go do my own thing to regulate and meet mine. Which one of these two is correct? Really neither. The reality is that secure, healthy relationships foster interdependence, the ability to self-soothe and self-regulate by knowing our own needs and being able to meet them, but also the ability to lean on people, to regulate with people, to open up, to bounce ideas around and get advice or new insights or opinions, and to be able to rely on people as much as we are able to also rely on ourselves. Think of it as being like a master of both sides. And what that does is it makes you extremely versatile, and I'll tell you how this comes back to the topic at hand here in a second, why dismissive avoidants can walk away so easily. But it makes you very versatile. It's what secure people do very well, because people are not always going to be perfect, right? People are not always going to be there for you perfectly. So if you have a need and somebody in your life is like going through their own hard time and they can't be there, it's not going to make you feel like you're shattered by like, oh my God, who's going to meet my need? I'm coming from complete lack. And my bucket can't be filled because the person I need to do this for me isn't here. What am I going to do? No, instead, I like to think of the analogy of you go to a gas station and your gas tank's half full because you can meet your own needs halfway, right? And if the gas station's closed, you're like, oh, it's an inconvenience. It's not ideal, but I'll just drive to the next gas station. Everything's going to be fine. Whereas if your gas tank's completely on empty and you pull up to a gas station and it's closed, it's a problem, right? And so you can think of that as being like what interdependent people do well. They know how to be able to like go to somebody for their needs, and they're comfortable in that vulnerability and that safety and that space. But then if somebody's not available, they're like, oh, that's too bad, but that's okay. And they're not afraid to like see their needs through and speak back up for them if they feel like there's not reciprocity. Like they'll have those conversations. This is something that, first of all, makes dismissive avoidance on point number 1 here have such a hard time really deeply connecting. And so it's easier for them to walk away because they're not leaning on people. So there's less attachment there, right? If you're never leaning on somebody to meet your needs, if you're never expecting them to, you're just not fostering as deep and as vulnerable of an attachment as other styles. Now, some of you might hear this and be like, well, that's better. That's safer because then you're never let down. But that's like saying I'm never going to go after my dreams in life because then I'll never get disappointed. Like, that's not the way, right? The way is to be able to have that middle ground, right? Be okay with being vulnerable and getting disappointed sometimes. Know that you'll be able to work through that and be able to self-soothe through that, but also know how to rely on yourself simultaneously, right? So we're not looking for, hey, let's not really attach to people and then we'll never get hurt or we'll minimize our risk all the time. You miss out on like the riches and the depth of like connection and closeness and life and love, which is a huge part that of our lives that we can derive this enrichment from. But if we're not really looking there and we're never giving ourselves the chance, sure, you minimize risk and you attach less and you're less hurt if somebody walks away. But is that really how you want to live? Is that really how you want to look back on life and be like, oh yeah, I spent my whole life playing it safe and good for me? Like, probably not. So interdependency is the way, because we self-soothe, we self-regulate, but we can connect with people. Okay, so that's the first piece. But I'm saying this because I want you to be able to look at this too and be like, where am I at on that continuum? Like, if you're learning about this today because you're curious about a dismissive avoidant in your life walking away, where are you on that continuum? Maybe it hurts you extra because you're a little too codependent and you want to start nurturing your ability to have self-reliance and to self-source your needs and to know your needs if you don't even know what they are yet, right? Because that's going to really help fuel all of your relationships, a relationship to yourself first, and then know what you need from all future relationships, how to vet for it, how to set your standards around that, how to communicate for those needs. Just noticing where you are on that continuum, okay? And try to notice if codependency is a 10 and counterdependency is a 1, where would you score yourself, okay? Point number 2. Co-regulation. What does this mean? Co-regulation is our ability to soothe with and through others. Okay, it kind of goes hand in hand with what we were talking about, but with some differences. Dismissive avoidance, we all, as mammals, literally as mammals, our nervous systems naturally entrain with other people, especially the people closest to us. So this all happened with us and our caregivers, our parents. And a lot of times, if we grew up around a really nervous person, we may have some anxiety as an adult because our nervous system's actually been wired or conditioned to take on and entrain with a lot of that nervousness. But by the same token, if you had a caregiver who was literally constantly out of attunement with you, not regulating, with you, not noticing when you felt distress as a child and not able to come and soothe for you, then there's this adaptation that essentially takes place for a dismissive avoidant where they're like, okay, I don't want to get too close to somebody where I entrain with them. I don't want to have this dynamic where I'm picking up on what somebody else is experiencing, and I sure don't want to be responsible for what somebody else is feeling when nobody was responsible for me. And so dismissive avoidance kind of shut down one of these fundamental features of what it means to be in a relationship, which is that we can co-regulate. And some everyday examples that you would see here. And again, I want you to score yourself on this if you're watching this video. But some everyday examples you'd see is like maybe your partner comes home from work and they walk in the door and you know your partner and you're attuned to them. And you can see that they're a little bit solemn and they've obviously had a bad day, and you might notice you're entrained with them and their micro expressions and their nervous system, and you're picking up on some of these things in terms of nonverbal communication, and you'll go and you'll stop what you're doing for a minute and give them a hug and say, hey, are you okay? How's it going? And that's a form of co-regulation. It's about, I notice and I am attuned to you, and I'm able to slightly modify my behavior to be there for you, okay? It's a very healthy fundamental part of secure relating, okay? Now, the codependent version of co-regulation would be like, you just are obsessed with what your partner's feeling all the time and you forget that like you also have things to be doing or a life going on, right? So co-regulation is healthy. Dismissive avoidance, they shut down that attunement piece a long time ago for a lot of them, okay? Not always. Sometimes you can have an enmeshed dismissive avoidant who feels that and then feels scared of it. But a lot of times dismissive avoidants are not even getting that attunement piece. They've shut off trying to attune to other people because nobody was attuned to them. It wasn't modeled to them or taught to them. And so they can walk away so easily because there's less of this connection developed through being able to co-regulate. And they are not only not expecting somebody to attune to them because it's foreign to them, but they are also not allowing somebody to attune to them. They're not letting somebody in. If they're feeling something, they try to literally not show their facial expressions. This is not conscious. This is subconscious, right? It was an adaptation as a part of their conditioning. But they will try to like literally not show their facial expressions, not really show their body language, not like let anybody to even see, or let anybody in to even see that they're feeling a certain way about stuff. And that's a really important cornerstone of like how we start becoming securely attached, is being able to receive co-regulation. So there's this attunement piece to co-regulation, and then the modification of my behavior to help somebody that I'm co-regulating with. But this is a two-way street. Co-regulation also means you're able to receive attunement and behavior from somebody else to feel better. And so this allows you to then feel comfortable in people's company for long periods of time, because you don't have to go throughout your day hiding yourself and your facial reactions and your facial expressions and your body language if something's off, which is what dismissive avoidants do, which make it hard to deeply attach, which make it easier to walk away. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. If you're not receiving the ability to regulate with and through other people, it makes being around people for longer periods of time much more of an effort, much more disruptive to your nervous system and your regulation process. And so then you're not allowing yourself to feel comfortable truly with people, which means you're not connecting as deeply. So it feels like, okay, I can walk. I just wanted to pop in here and let you know we are doing a 7-day free trial to the All Access Membership Pass at PDS, which means you get access to literally everything inside of the school. And this includes the 4 live webinars I do with our students every single week. And on top of that, you get access to all of our different courses. We have over 55 different courses on relationships, communication, boundaries, emotional mastery, guilt and shame, learning your needs, so many different facets that are really important to master our lives and feel really good about our lives going forward. And last but not least, there's a daily community event. We have trained facilitators and coaches who are in there doing that work, showing up to support you on your journey every single day. Please join me on the other side. Come check it out. See if it's a fit for you. I'd love to see you there. Go ahead and sign up by clicking the link in the description box below. Third major reason dismissive avoidants can walk away so easily is because this is how they cope. Okay, this is how they have been wired to cope, which means when something makes them feel and they don't want to feel their negative feelings, they have literally learned to cope by repressing their feelings, compartmentalizing, and shutting down, which then means that anybody or anything that could remind them of their feelings scares them. And so what they will do is they will go, okay, I need you to get as far away as possible from me after a breakup or after a fight or after an argument so that you're not going to make me feel anything. And that's how I'm going to best cope. And that's how they've literally trained themselves or basically adapted to their conditioning. That's literally how they've been conditioned to cope, is to compartmentalize, to repress, and to not look at things. So now they walk away so easily because that walking away, it looks so easy, but that's like their main coping mechanism, is to try to shut everything down and keep it as far away as possible so they don't feel anything. And not feeling is when they feel like they are at their best. Is that the reality? No. There's an old saying, the only way out is through. And I fully believe this. I think that everything that we repress comes out in different forms in our lives, comes out through, loneliness, isolation. Maybe a dismissive avoidant doesn't realize how much they're self-isolating, but over time they do. And that's painful, right? There's an inherent cost to that in our lives. So it may look easier from the outside, but there's a lot of cost on the other side of that that's important to recognize as well for anybody who does this. Sometimes fearful avoidants can do that as well. So I am curious, from 1 to 10, how much do you, no matter what your attachment style is, show up to actually move through your feelings by processing them, by figuring out what you can do to feel relief in healthy ways and tending to those needs and being conscious and strategic and intentional about those things? Or do you also kind of numb and shut down and avoid and deflect? Always great to take inventory as you're learning about somebody else for yourself at the same time. So that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you like, share, subscribe to this channel so you don't miss any of the exciting giveaways that we do or just any of our daily content and videos. Thank you so much for stopping by. I'll see you next time.